All right, let me start first with a recap. My thoughts on what I saw last night. I would love to tell you I was surprised by any of that, but I'm not. Did we not know that that was exactly the kind of game we were going to get? Like the most predictable thing ever. Like I always say, after any alleged big Cowboy win in the big Mike McCarthy era, the win had nothing to do with big Mike McCarthy. Once again last night, the Cowboys won in spite of the big fella. And they won in spite of their 11 penalties. And they won in spite of their brutal punt muff in the fourth quarter.
Muff.
That muff? What up, Elk? Yo, Elk. Muff. They won even though they didn't play all that well. And if you don't believe me on that, just ask a Cowboy fan. It's tough to say how exactly the Cowboys walked out of SoFi with a win last night, other than the fact that they were playing the Chargers. And I hate to be that guy, because you all know this is a Chargers house. But it's not like I can sit here and act like that's a team full of closers or a team that knows how to finish. In fact, they're just the opposite. The numbers say as much. Much as it pains me to say it.
You can't close the lead.
Right. Much as it pains me to say it, the Bolts are a team that generally finds ways to lose games and not win them. They're 2-3. All three of their losses have been by 3 points or less. Despite the fact that Justin Herbert lives right down the street from me, obvious name drop, despite the fact that he lives right down the street from me, no wonder I never get any invites to his famous victory barbecues. It's because, despite their talent and their pedigree and their roster, they consistently find ways to lose games, not win them. 2-3. Hell, this team could be 5-1 or better. They could be undefeated. Why the hell does this keep happening? This is not a young team that's learning how to win. This is a veteran team that keeps finding ways to lose. This is why I said yesterday during our Big Head Bet segment why I was having so much trouble with that game. Because I did not trust either one of those teams. I don't trust the Bolts for obvious reasons, and no Cowboy fan. Despite you grinding out a win on the road, I don't trust your team either. After I saw what your team did last night, I don't trust you any more than I already didn't trust you before that game. Cowboy fan, you're good, but you're not great. You're not elite. You're not Super Bowl material. We saw that when the Niners broke your jaw. Now, to be fair, Dak Prescott does deserve some credit. Notice I'm saying some credit. He probably played his best game of the season, which isn't saying a hell of a lot because he hasn't played that well this year. But I will say this. Dak Prescott was not whack Prescott last night.
That's whack.
But then again, that's Dak.
That's whack.
But then again, he did it against the Bolts. And nobody's confusing the Bolts defense with the Niners defense. But no, Dak Prescott was not whack Prescott. But Big Mike sure as hell was Big Mike. In fact, Big Mike might have had one of his all-time McCarthyist moments going into halftime. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Even the refs were like, the hell is this dude thinking? Even the refs were like, the hell is this big fella's problem? Because the refs, even the refs, stopped the clock with 8 seconds left in the half, knowing that Mike would obviously use one of his 2 remaining timeouts.
Call timeout, Mike.
In order to stop the clock, to take a shot at the end zone. Because that would be common sense. Because that would be the obvious move. Because that would be the move that any logical coach with any understanding of clock management would make in that situation. Except Mike is none of those things. Mike is not a logical coach. Mike does not have your standard understanding of clock management. In fact, Mike does not, may I call you Mike, big fella? Mike does not have any understanding of clock management. Never has. Well, we all know that because we've been watching him butcher the hell out of clock management for years and years now. But apparently the refs did not recognize who they were dealing with last night. They actually stopped the clock for him. And then the broadcast cameras caught Mike asking, why did you stop the clock? Why did you stop the clock? Run it down to 3. You know who the hell I am?
You know who the hell I am?
I'm Big Mike McCarthy. You know what the hell I do? I butcher clock management. Man, this dude had no interest in stopping the clock and taking another shot at the end zone. What Mike really wanted to do was take that final timeout with him into halftime, as if it would carry over to the second half or something. That was his real goal. The field goal was just the extra. The points were just the cherry on the top. Here's how, and of course, nobody could wait to ask him. Everybody was eager to ask him, Michael, the hell were you doing and thinking at the end of that half in not stopping the clock and taking a shot at the end zone? And here's Mike taking a rare and infrequent trip to the salad bar. Yo, brother, let me make an analogy that even you can understand, Mike. Maybe you throw some gigantic croutons on top of that word salad. You like bread, right? Hey, dude, thanks for clarifying absolutely nothing. Man, I love, did you see the way he tagged that? And yet, I mean, it's just like gibberish. And yes, the other call would have been, quote, throw the ball into the end zone. End of quote. Like he's kind of hung that on as a qualifier at the very end of that. Right, dude. The other call? You mean the only call? The call that every other coach in the history of the world would have made. Yeah, but I'm glad to know that all that word salad went into your decision to, quote, play it safe and kick the field goal and take that precious time out that, again, you were not allowed to take with you into the second half, into the locker room where it was totally worthless. You know what else I'm pretty well convinced of? I'm convinced that Whack and the offense really appreciate the confidence you showed in them by spinning the clock down and settling for the field goal and not letting him take a shot at the end zone. And by confidence, I mean the confidence that you did not show in him. Man, how lucky is this dude that did not come back to bite him in the ass? I mean, just because they didn't lose doesn't mean that doesn't matter. It does. It just goes to remind everybody that in the event that these guys actually do play in a game that matters, against a team that matters, late in the season, McCarthy will butcher the clock and do something to get them beat. It's who he is. It's what he does. It's where he lives. Full freaking stop. He got away with it. But it doesn't mean it's all right. Just because they won. Like, that's one of those things where you can't say to me, hey, Rome, scoreboard. Scoreboard. You can't. Not in that case. That's the one time in life when scoreboard does not apply. Because it will come back and bite them in the ass. It always does. And the craziest thing about this, you know what's even crazier than all that? The fact that Big Mike still managed to outcoach Brandon Staley last night. That's incredible. And listen, I'm not looking to pile on Brandon Staley. I'm one of the only guys left that will try and defend him. I like him. I've always liked the dude. But everybody else is looking to pile on this guy. He might be, for a good guy, look, I'm not saying he's Vince Lombardi. But for a good guy, he might be the single most hated figure on the X right now, which is really saying something because the X is the place where everybody hates everybody and everything. But seemingly nobody hates anything or anybody more than everybody on that app hates Brandon Staley. At least that's the way it felt. And the way it felt was completely unhinged and overboard. I mean, a lot of you are really unhinged. However, the last thing I want to hear, okay, that said, the last thing I want to hear from Brandon Staley after that game and another close loss is how high level it was last night and how great that was for ball and how great that was for the league and how great both those teams are. I mean, my guy, miss me with all of that. Because nowhere anywhere is anybody buying any of that. I mean, my dude, who are you trying to convince with that? Us or you? Because none of us are buying that. A really tough game between two really good teams? If by that you mean a really ugly game between two teams who both look like they didn't really want to win, then yes, I would agree. Then we had a really tough game with two really good teams.
Two really good teams. And
I mean, come on. Now, if you mean a garbage game that somebody won only because somebody had to win, then yes, I would agree with that. Nobody looked like they wanted to win that game, but somebody had to. And that somebody was the Cowboys. And I'm just so devastated on behalf of Chargers Girl. Chargers Girl deserves so much better than Chargers players or Chargers team or Chargers coach or Chargers owner. I mean, seriously, did any of them want to win more than she wanted them to win? How devastating was it to watch her devastation at the end of that game? That's my biggest takeaway from last night. The only person in that house elite at what they were doing was the woman absolutely cheering her face off for the Bolts. I mean, she was so much more electric and so much more captivating than the game itself. She essentially wound up taking over the broadcast. By the end of that game, she was reaching T-Swift levels of TV coverage. I half expected Dak or Justin Herbert or somebody to try and date her to all of a sudden get the networks to go crazy. I mean, she even got multiple shout-outs from Joe and Troy. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Nobody in that stadium was having as good a time as she was. Until, of course, that game went south, and then nobody was having a more miserable time. That's why this story went from hilarious to tragic. That poor woman deserves so much better than the Bolts. And you know, frankly, she deserves so much better than your conspiracy theories and all the gossip and innuendo on the X. Seriously, leave this woman alone. You're lucky she even performs for you, bastards. Leave Charger woman alone. Don't come in here with theories about how she wasn't just the definition of pure ecstasy. She was the definition of high on pure ecstasy. That it wasn't the Bolts that had her brain, but rather the Molly. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not fair.
Don't do that.
We have absolutely no evidence that she was high or drunk or mollified. She just loves, I made that up. She just loves the Chargers.
The definition of pure ecstasy, that's it.
Nor do I want to hear that she was an NFL plant like T. Swift and T. Kelsey, allegedly. Come on, man. I know it's Los Angeles, but that doesn't mean that the league went out and found some actress and then paid that actress to be the biggest Charger honk on the planet. Even for the NFL, that's absurd. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell to be the first to know when we do upload a new video.